Okay, this is my drawing of the Plasmodium stages in malaria, and got that from malariavaccine.org. So, first, the definitive stage, the one in the Anopheles mosquito, the female, it's called the definitive stage because that's the parasite sexual stage takes place in that mosquito. So the mosquito bites somebody, ends up getting the gametocytes, and they end up in the intestine. Those develop to a zygote. The zygote ends up getting the ability to move, develops into an oa kinete that ends up getting the midgut, traverses the midgut, becomes an oocyst. That grows and eventually releases all these sporozoites in the mosquito. Those make their way up to the salivary glands. If that mosquito bites us, then those sporozoites end up in us, in a person, and that starts the next stage, the intermediate stage. So those sporozoites end up making their way to the liver in the hepatic cells. They end up turning into schizonts, and these end up they end up releasing these merozoites into our bloodstream. These little daughter cells. I would also like to mention really quickly, that some of these parasites can lie dormant in the liver, and they can stay there for days, years, hibernating before they actually wake up and infect somebody. And these are called hypnozoites in the liver. So going back to the bloodstream, the merozoites are in the bloodstream. They end up affecting red blood cells and get in there. They create a ring stage, and these trophozoites end up turning into schizonts. They eventually release all these merozoites into the bloodstream. This creates a cycle where more red blood cells are infected, releasing more and more merozoites into the bloodstream. And when they do this, when these red blood cells burst, by the way, the textbook points out that this can cause some really bad problems. It can cause fever, people can have chills, and it's due to the red blood cells bursting, releasing toxins into the system, and it's just a cycle that keeps going on. And eventually, gametocytes can be produced, and these can end up in the mosquito, perpetuating the cycle all over again. Signs and symptoms. There can be all various signs and symptoms, everything from diarrhea, fever, anemia from the loss of blood, the red blood cells just being damaged, chills, jaundice. The textbook points out that people can have headaches, vomiting, people can have muscle aches, and the textbook points out that these, because of the red blood cells sort of bursting, this can take place every 2 to 3 days. People can have these symptoms then of chills, fever, and when this rupturing isn't taking place, people can actually feel okay. And so the textbook does a really good job of talking about that. And how does the parasite cause the signs and symptoms? So again, the parasite Plasmodium causes these symptoms by infecting red blood cells, causing them to burst, and releasing toxins. This can really cause people to have major problems, chills, fever. Also, as the textbook points out, a little knob can develop on these red blood cells. This would cause them to get logjam in the capillaries. This can cause a lot of problems. The textbook does a great job of pointing out that the spleen may not get enough blood, which filters out the bad stuff. And so you can have that. You can have the blockade of the capillaries causing damage to tissues, and it can cause damage, be a really bad thing, can be terrible, causing damage to organs. The textbook points out how there can be damage to the liver, kidneys, the brain. And so, because of that knob, because of the fact that there's eruption of the red blood cells, that's really some of the main ways that the symptoms can show up.